Morena, good morning, everybody. Warm welcome to you all as we commence this council meeting. Welcome to members of the public who might be watching on the live stream and members of the media, but also councillors and staff. A warm welcome to you all. Just ask for apologies, first of all, so noting Deputy Mayor Alalele is an apology. Have any other apologies? So apology for lateness for Councillor Thompson. Any others? All good. Someone like to move that we accept those? Councillor Hopkins, Councillor Linwood, thank you. All in favour say aye. Aye. And against? That's carried. Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? There are none. No members of the public forum. So go straight to item 4.1. Public minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of February. No, that one's not in there. Sorry, I'm just going through the list, but it's that was to be in the addendum. So we'll go to item 5.1. Rattling through the agenda, and so it's the Chief Executive's report. So hand over to you, Mr. Parnley.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm not going to go through all of the report. You'll be pleased to know. I'll take the report as read, but just highlight a couple of things in there, in particular around Three Waters. So the legislation is going through Parliament at the moment, and our submission on that was presented to the Select Committee. In particular, we emphasised in that the need for more community voice within the new proposed water system, and that we talked about the impact potentially on our CCO of the proposal to transfer that part of the business into the new water entities, and the harm that that could cause to our community given the benefits that our CCO provides to our communities. Also highlighted in there is the speech by Minister McAnulty on the refocus that the government is going to give to Three Waters. We await the outcome of that. Undoubtedly, there are proposed changes coming, and the Minister emphasised that he had heard the message about community voice being important within the reformed Three Waters system. A couple of other things to highlight in there. I just highlight economic development and the progress we're making there. So the council agreed a new economic development strategy last year, which included a recommendation to look at establishing an economic development agency. And we're looking at how we progress that and proposing some wider community consultation on that alongside the annual plan. In the meantime, utilising the Better Off funding from government, we are looking to progress implementation of some of the aspects of the economic development strategy to realise some of the benefits, and have partnered with Business South to help enable us do that and provide us with some capacity, particularly looking at the skills area and how we get the skills that our local businesses need and support our community in terms of the skills development. Also entrepreneurship and how we support the development of businesses within the district. We're also in the process of recruiting a placemaking lead to support work in terms of taking forward our town centres and our CBD and the development of plans and improvements there. And finally, I'd highlight transformation. There's a fuller report in there. It's early stages of our transformation. There's a lot of work going on across the organisation, which is really about now planning the detail of the changes that we want to make to realise the benefits that were agreed in the business case that went to council last year. So good progress is being made, but still early stages of the transformation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parnley. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, with your permission, Mayor Getch, I do have about 4 of them, in fact. I'll start with one that emerges from your briefing just now. We're having an economic development discussion later in the day, and I want to know why we're doing a consultation on the matters related to ED and the future of tourism, Waitaki and the like, separately from the annual plan, when I would have thought we could have included it in it. So I'm really asking you, why are we doing 2 separate consultations when in fact we could amalgamate them as one? So that's the first question.
Yeah, we did look at that, and that was our original intent, to do them as the same consultation. I think we felt that there was a danger that the economic development issues might get lost in that annual plan consultation, and vice versa, the things we want to consult on in the annual plan consultation, and that it warranted separate consultations on that. And in particular, in terms of the economic development one, there were probably more of a focused audience really for that consultation, whereas the annual plan is a wider community consultation. So the plan is to operate alongside each other, but as separate consultations.
Right. Well, I might dissent, but I won't put the matter to the vote or test the mood of the meeting. On page 12, you talk about meetings with Okaha and representatives from Waitaki regarding the feedback on the sites and areas of Maori significance. Can you update us on that, please? And I'll just, if I may, just run through the other questions at the same time. I'm curious to know, on page 14, you talk about unforeseen delays regarding individual airport management requirements, which have been addressed in subsequent matters. Can you amplify that, and why we now have to wait for the airport strategy to be completed by the end of May? The third question is, what, if any, results emerged from your discussion with UNESCO re the Geopark and additional government involvement and support? And finally, I think I was going to ask you, do we know why lotteries turned down the grant from the application from the trust, the Sports and Event Centre Trust, for the why the application to the Lotteries Community Facilities Fund was unsuccessful?
I ask Mr. Cook to come in on the sites of significance for Maori, if you can provide an answer on that.
The sites of significance to Maori are a key chapter in the new district plan. There's been a range of feedback through the consultation program, which relates to sites of significance to Maori, and we understand that will be a very important process to take the councillors through. So the planning team have engaged with the Kaha and the Runanga to provide some specialist input to that for us, and that will be coming back to council through a workshop process initially, and then through the decision process as normal, and I believe that's scheduled for June time.
Just to clarify for those who aren't aware what Okaha is, it's the professional organisation that the 7 Southern Runanga are shareholders in, and it helps works with councils in particular on issues around resource consenting and so forth. So just so people understand that reference. Mr. Marley.
Okay, in terms of the airport matters, I'd just say on that, I don't think it'd be appropriate necessarily in public to go into the individual matters, because they affect individual businesses, and I wouldn't want to do that without their consent in a public meeting. But the airport is quite resource hungry in terms of officer time and the various management issues out there. And that's part of the reason why we want the master plan and business plan in place. We are also a bit down in terms of capacity within the property team as well at the moment, which is something that has affected our ability to move everything forward at once. In terms of the UNESCO Geopark, I'm not sure I've got much more to add other than what has put there really, in that we had a good discussion that UNESCO New Zealand are supportive of our efforts to get more government involvement, but they haven't got the ability to require the government to be involved in this, so they'll support our efforts in terms of getting that greater government involvement and support. I think the other thing that was raised that they'll support us on really is around linking with other UNESCO sites within the country to gather learnings from them in terms of how they've managed to get the maximum community and economic benefit out of their UNESCO designation. Ultimately, that's what we'd like to see from this, is maximising the community benefits and learning from other sites, and also forming a network that provides support to our geopark team here is something that they're happy to help facilitate with. So that they can learn the lessons of other areas, so we can maximise the benefit from the geopark. In terms of the event centre trust grant, I'm not sure I've got an answer on that, and I'm looking at Josh as to whether he's any closer to it. Or
Essentially, I think they want to be the last cab and want to make sure that we've exhausted all the other applications and so on that we can possibly do, and then they come in at the end and hopefully give us many millions of dollars to finish the project. But that might be a little optimistic. I think that's pretty much the story of it, Josh. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. So another application will be made, and with the expectation that there will be more success at that time. Any other questions? Councillor Blackler.
Page 17, I just had a question about the partnership with Central Otago District Council. There's a note there about a short list of opportunities, including some quick ones. I was just wondering if you could highlight what those are.
So we're trying to distill it into a short list of opportunities at the moment. I think I'm being cautious in that some of them affect staff positions, so I wouldn't want to discuss them at this stage until we're clearer in terms of what those actually mean. But that those staff are aware that are potentially in the frame for that. But I'll want those to progress before we actually reveal those publicly.
So overall, what we're looking for though is ways of dealing with some of the shortages of skills, and also to gain efficiencies. Is that right?
So some of it's about where we've got a shared skills shortage. Some of it is about getting an efficiency whereby we're doubling up on effort. So we all have a similar set of suite of policies. Why are we developing those separately when we could develop them together? And that could be almost like a boilerplate sort of approach to it, and then slight differences to reflect the differences within each organisation. So that's what we're looking at. It'd be more efficient to combine our resources in some areas, but also we might have more joy in the market, as it were, if we're offering something that's a bit more attractive across two councils rather than just individually trying to tackle them.
With the announcement that Sanchi Jacobs is leaving as CEO from CODC, do you think that's going to cause any challenges, or is there good discussions happening at all levels?
Yeah, so there's discussions happening. It's not just CE to CE. So our two ELTs have met a couple of times now and are taking actions forward. And there's discussions below the ELT level as well. Tier 3 managers having discussions about how we share resources. So I'm not saying it won't have an impact, because if a new CE comes in and isn't sees it as a different priority to developing that partnership, that could impact it. But at the moment, I think we can see the organisation is committed to that partnership at a number of levels.
No, thank you. It's definitely a positive thing to be building those relationships and sharing some services along the way. Councillors, any other questions? Okay, I'll move that we receive that report. Someone like to second that? Councillor Linwood, thank you. Those in favour, please say aye. And against? Carried. Thank you. Right, so on to item 6.1, the 2023 to 24 annual plan draft operating budgets and proposals, and just welcome Mandy McIntosh and Wells to the chamber, along with some other key staff that are involved in this, and we'll hand over to Mr. Paul Hope to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just make some brief introductory comments. I think probably first focusing on attachment 1 and the opening position. So officers were instructed to go out and update the year 3 LTP budgets based on their best estimates of price and cost and revenue to deliver the levels of service indicated in the year 3 of the long-term plan. And that really generated the starting position of nearly a requirement to increase rates by around 13%. You certainly would have numerous discussions with elected members, and I think general agreement that that's probably an unsustainable and unaffordable position for the community. So officers were challenged to find economy savings and increased revenue to bring it back to a more reasonable figure. The major changes are highlighted in that table. Certainly the most significant is the proposal to hold the funding of depreciation in the 3 waters and property area at the current levels rather than the increased amounts based on the recent revaluations in those 2 areas, to hold the separate rate, the 3 waters separate rates at their current levels rather than increasing them, and to make a number of other adjustments to bring it back to an amount but closer to the CPI as it's sort of published. Really, we are facing a different mix of cost pressures compared to what's included in CPI. Particularly, very heavy labour, fuel, machinery components in the costs we face, and some of those are automatically rolled into our larger maintenance contracts. So we brought it back to the level indicated in that table. I think that's hopefully elected members, we have discussed it. The elected members see that as a reasonable amount to go out to the community on. We are proposing that council does have the option of engaging or not engaging in the annual plan process. Again, we're recommending that we do go out to the community and consult on the increase and various other matters that will have an impact on the final annual plan document. Probably one, some of them are noted in here. We'll also be looking at, we've had a request from the Mahino community that that council takes over the operation of this scheme, including all of the financial aspects. So that will be another matter that we'll be engaging on and would have an impact on the final annual plan if that is accepted by the community and by council. That's why we have a consultation proposal attached to this item. It sets it out in general terms, and then there will be a further report later in the month where the finalised consultation material will be adopted. So I'm not sure if this is McIntosh, smashing cost, sorry. Can you put presumptive there? Wishes to add anything? But otherwise, very happy to answer any questions.
No, thank you, Mr. Hope. No, there's really not a lot there to add. The reports are taken as read, and the information we've seen before at previous workshops. The only thing that I would want to add is that we have added in the project for better off housing funding that wasn't previously represented in the project proposals, and they've also added into the community engagement a live stream opportunity as we discussed at the previous workshop as well. So that's really the only changes that we've made, but this is the opportunity that to confirm that engagement plan, there is, we have identified what we believe are significant or material changes in line with our significant engagement policy, which we would recommend on that basis to proceed with engagement with our community on the proposals we've put forward. So thank you.
Yeah, so to quickly go through, so we were intending to have a 9.3% increase. We're now looking at something that's over 1% lower than that. When we did the long-term plan, what was the assumed inflation rate at that time? Because obviously it's over 7% at the moment.
Yeah, between 2.5 and 3. We use a variety of factors, but it was pretty closely clustered around those sorts of amounts.
Yeah.
So yeah, very significant change.
Yeah, I think as much as we'd like it lower, the increase lower, in the scheme of things, it's obviously, you know, there's been quite a cut to be able to achieve where we're at. And I'd probably just reiterate the desire for the community to engage and let us know what they think about about that, but also the projects and so on that we have in there. Councillors, have you got any questions or comments you want to make? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of consultation, but I asked the question, what is the cost in terms of officer time and actual physical costs to the council in that process?
Obviously, there is quite a lot of time of officer time invested into preparing an engagement document. We've been working on this now among our other duties over the last couple of months, but we have a budget for the annual plan of $1,500.
Thank you. I just was hoping you were going to say thousands, and I was going to say, let's save it and just get on with it.
Yeah, we certainly can choose to not engage, given that the increase is less than what we were going to have, and I'm not sure if there's other items of significance in there that still require us to. Mr. Hope is nodding that there might be.
Yeah, so because Mahino would be a new rate, we do need to consult on that matter, but you know, we could have done that by itself in a far more limited consultation. But I think, you know, essentially the extra effort involved between that and taking something a bit wider is actually quite limited. So we saw it, especially with the focus on Three Waters and the proposal not to fund the depreciation, that it is better to be pretty open with the public about what's proposed.
Thank you. Councillors, Councillor Blackler, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering if we could just talk to the potential risks around unfunding depreciation, just to go back over that. Thanks, Paul.
There's actually very limited risk. I mean, it's a 1-year measure, and you know, the funding of depreciation and the replacement of the assets is it's a very long-term decision. So it's really just buying a small amount of time for the community to adjust to sort of the increases in values. And I think also the values we have seen, the increase in values that we've seen, I think just are reflecting a quite unusual market that we've been facing the last couple of years, both in terms of price increases for a variety of reasons, but also the demands on the sector, particularly with sort of the tranche 1 funding that the government pumped into the Three Waters area. It really did increase a lot of unit prices and some of the prices we faced. So I think we're just saying that it's a bit of an anomaly. We want the market to settle. It would be, potentially being able to go out in a couple of years' time, the values either stabilise or drop back a wee bit, and we've almost overrated people for a couple of years. So I think it's we've been clear about it. I think it's actually a very low risk decision, and something that also gives council the ability to accommodate the economic realities that we're dealing with at this present point in time.
Thanks, Mr. Hope. I just think in the interest of being really clear about that, being 1 year, it'd be just nice to have that wording slightly tweaked in the, it may already be that way in the consultation document.
We can certainly highlight that feature in the consultation material.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions that I've been asked to ask by a ratepayer, and one that emerges from your comments this morning, Paul. This matter of the Mahina water supply, I would have thought there were two options there: either a very significant increase for a relatively small number of ratepayers, or possibly a smaller increase for a larger number of ratepayers. Are you able to give any indication today of what the increase over and above the 8.1% rise that we're proposing? What might the impact of the Mahina water supply incorporation and the overall council operation, what might it be, and for whom?
No, I can't give you an estimate about what the overall rate increase would have been if we had incorporated the Mahina, because and it would also be quite unhelpful because it's essentially, it will only be paid by a new group of ratepayers, so it has no effect on the wider group. The commitment that has been made to Mahina, and that I think was discussed with council, is, that they will come in and join the Greater Oamaru scheme, so they will be charged the same amount as the wider Oamaru ratepayers. So it would be a false increase, because it's an increase in the total rate requirement, but it's also an increase in the number of ratepayers paying it.
I think the challenge is there's a lot of moving parts in this, and it depends on exactly how we determine, and it's really up to us around this table to determine how that cost might be allocated. If we were just funding the operational costs of the work, then it might be something like 0.2% in very rough numbers increase overall, but falling on around 80 ratepayers. So it just depends on whether we want to levelise that. It depends on what happens with the debt, because there's an overall cost that's upwards of $1 million to take it on, and so it's how we deal with that, with the uncertainty of what the Three Water reform holds, where potentially any debt gets handed over to the new entity. So there's a lot of things, a lot of the decisions that are going to be made along the way, and we've tried to give as much certainty to that community as possible, but acknowledging there's just a very many moving parts that we've got to take into consideration. Contrary to some beliefs, taking over a water scheme like that actually increases risk and increases cost to us and to ratepayers overall, and it's not something that benefits everyone else in a major way. It's actually can be a liability, but these are our ratepayers, and for other services, they are our people, and it's about us looking after them. And if they are at a point in time where they are no longer able to manage their own water scheme, then taking it over will allow the new standards and so on to be introduced, and in a way that is in accordance with the regulations. So we'll see. It'll be a good discussion to have with the community. We've had a couple of meetings already, several meetings, and there'll be a chance to formalise that a bit more.
So just to clarify, because I'm not sure we've even formally voted on this matter, what you said is the only impact will be on new ratepayers. So presumably,
It depends on what we agree as far as where the impact. But if we say if we decide that's where it should fall, then that's we need to talk about that part of it. And then there's also basically they'll be joining onto the Hamnack pipeline, which has been oversized to allow for growth. This isn't exactly growth; it's existing users just in a private scheme. So there's still some loan funding that has to be paid for that extra capacity when we future-proof that pipeline. So like I say, there's a lot of bits to take into consideration, and we'll try and have that complex discussion with the community as best we can.
Which takes me back to my original point. We should be able to say, based on what the Mayor's just said, what the fiscal outcomes will be and what the cost will be if option A or B or C is adopted. And we should be able to say that now, and we should be able to tell people what the impact on the overall rate increase might be, surely. Is that a fair assumption or not?
Sorry, I've already answered that question.
Like I say, there's you mentioned A, B, and C. I think we'd use up most of the alphabet if we actually tried to communicate all of the options, because there's so many bits. There's so many, if this happens or that happens and so forth. So the best we can do is give them a general indication of what it would look like. The problem is they're on a private scheme. They're subject to the regulations around drinking water and the delivery of that water. They've got a infrastructure that we're not certain on exactly what's under the ground, and there's not always good records on that. Got some consumers are on tanks and restricted supplies, some are on unrestricted supplies. There's a lot of complexity in taking over something like that, and there's the risk, and it's trying to measure that and provide a service. And for the committee that's looking after it at the moment, they've got some very good people on there, but some of them want to step down from those roles and get their life back, really, because it's become such an overarching impact on their private life, and they've got other things they want to get on with.
I have a couple of other questions that I've been the ratepayers raised with me, and I'm essentially asked them, if you like, on their behalf. Question one is that they've calculated or asserted that we're about to spend 5.5 million on the Windsor, Cowrie Hill and Tokarahi drinking water standard upgrades. And the question is, why don't we just tell the government to pay for the whole lot themselves? Now, I think I know the answer, but I wouldn't mind hearing it. The other question, perhaps for you, Alex, is, this one puzzles me, because the allegation or the claim is that we've budgeted 2.1 million this year for the transformation program, and the suggestion is it's all going to the consultants. Now, I don't think I can't see that figure in the annual plan at the moment, and I'm also almost absolutely certain it's not all going to the consultant. But are you able to clarify or amplify either of those points?
I think on the first question around the upgrades of other schemes, we're required to do them. It is no longer acceptable to be delivering water where there's a greater risk than is what's legislated for, that there's boil water notices on. I mean, it's something we have to do, and yes, we can tell the government we're not going to do it, and then we will get taken to court potentially, or at worst case scenario, you'll be fired and there'll be commissioners sitting around this table. So it's the reality of it. And yes, I would go with you. Yes, I'd be fired as well. Anyway, Mr. Powell, I mean, this isn't a discussion about the Free Waters Reform or drinking water standards as such, but if we talk about the transformation, thanks, Mr. Powell.
Yeah, I can confirm that not all of that money is going on consultants. I haven't got the exact figures to hand as to what the consultant portion of that budget is, but most of that money is about investing in the changes we need to make internally to ensure that we can modernise what we do and be more efficient and offer a better level of service to our customers. So I can supply you with the figure for consultants. I think it was in the original proposal. So it's in the public documents, I think, that went to council last year, what the envisaged consultant spend would be on that. We do need consultants. I know it's popular to say, oh, let's not, have consultants, but we don't have all the skills and capacity we need in the organisation to do everything that, this council set out it wants to do, including in the transformation space. And so sometimes we need to buy in those skills for a temporary period of time. It's not efficient to recruit them permanently because we're not after a permanent resource within those areas. I know people, don't like the idea of spending, ratepayers' money on consultants, but if we're going to move forward, sometimes we just need to suck it up and say, we haven't got that skill or that capacity in the organisation. If we're going to be successful in this, in meeting our aspirations for the council and the community, that's what we need to buy in.
Does that figure of 2.15 million ring a bell with you? It doesn't. I've gone through the plans and I can't see that number there, not as that number.
Well, you've got an advantage on me because I haven't gone back through the plan. So if I knew the question was coming up today, I'd have gone through the budget and I'd have been able to supply you an answer in public. But as it is, I can't because I haven't got the budget in front of me.
Okay, and I think some of it's, it's certainly not all new money. It's been money that's been diverted from other bits and pieces. So, that's important to know.
And Council Holding suggests some of it's a carryover as well.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Thompson.
I'm quite happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, just on number 7 on there, confirm whether council wishes to engage with the community. So you're moving it with that we will engage.
Correct.
That we do wish to engage. So lost me words. Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Blackler, thank you. Any discussion, Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, I'm not going to vote against it. Obviously, that would be foolish, but and I take the point before about inflation and the fact that it's much higher now than it was when we originally predicted a higher rate rise this year. But I do suspect, all of that being said, that the perception in the community as a result of us saying that we want to increase rates by over 8% is that we're part of the problem, not part of the solution. And I just think we should not simply settle for this figure as the final. And I would challenge us around this table to carry on looking between now and June 30 for ways to save money. And if that means being a bit more stringent and a bit more rigorous and a bit more inclined to follow Grant Robertson's advice apparently to his cabinet colleagues, murder your darlings, then maybe that's what we have to do. Because the fact of the matter is that if people are facing a cost of living crisis, and many are, and if we do say, as we do in our transformation program, that we are living beyond our community's means and we need to stop doing so, then the best place and best time to start stopping is now. And so we could, in my view, commit to working to get the 8% rate rise down, if at all possible, between now and the day that the annual plan is adopted.
Thank you. Without wanting to get political about it, the day that Grant Robertson actually does murder his darlings and actually says we're not going to take any more tax than what we take. They've got the benefit of getting more taxation through inflation and through people moving across thresholds, which don't get lowered each year to take into account the overall percentage of taxation coming out of everyone's pay packets. So, yeah, I don't know that voting, any minister that says that sort of thing is ideal. But yeah, we definitely will carry on that work. There's been a lot of work to get us to where we are. If we hadn't adjusted things, we would be looking more at 14% type mark, just because of the change in inflation. compared to assumptions. So we have come back. We would like it to be nothing, no increase, obviously. It's probably important to note that, when we're going out with something just over 8%, that's not what the average ratepayer will, well, it is what the average ratepayer will pay, but there's probably very few ratepayers will pay that. Some will pay less than that, and some will pay more than that, depending on where they are and what services they are receiving. It's also important to note that we do have each year an increase in the number of ratepayers through subdivision and development and so forth. So the 8% gets shared out slightly more widely. So that's also something to take into consideration. But yeah, it is what it is. We'll keep working on it. We look forward to the community engaging with us on this and giving us their thoughts and ideas. And we'll be taking those into consideration as we make the final decisions in June. Any other comments, councillors? Okay, I'm going to put it. Those in favour say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ian and Mandy and Victoria and Tim and Alison and all the rest of the team right across council that works on their budgets and so on to bring us this. I'm not going to name all of the staff, no, Mr. Parley, but well done, you. Thank you. Okay, councillors. Moving to item 6.2, the thrilling next instalment, the draft significance and engagement policy 2023. So Mr. Hope is quickly handing it over to Mrs. Van der Speck. So we'll just allow you to get organised. Just note too, councillors, just on the agenda list, there's an item 6.3 which isn't listed on there, but when it'll be the next one, which is on the Penguin Colony car park. Just raise your awareness of that one. So anyway, for the moment though, we're on page. Yep, it's on the front page. So we're on page 41. And hand over to you, Victoria. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. I'd like to present to you the draft Waitaki District Council Certificates Engagement Policy and Guidelines for 2023. Just a bit of a context, because I think we haven't really talked about this for quite some time. So we're required under the LGA to have a significance and engagement policy. We briefly touched on it this morning with the annual plan discussions. So this policy outlines for council and the community how we decide what issues, proposals, decisions, assets and activities are significant. And it sets out when the community can expect to have input into council's decision-making processes. So the current policy was adopted in 2014, and there have been no formal reviews or amendments made since this time. There have been some changes made to the LGA, particularly around bringing back in the community wellbeings. So it's important that we align this with the LGA to meet our legislative requirements under that. So a revised policy has been developed and tested in consultation with staff for around about the last 6 to 12 months we've been working on this policy. It's been aligned with the transformation program and the governance review, and in parallel with the development of a new council report template. Council is required to consider community views on changes to a significance and engagement policy under the LGA, unless there are grounds that it considers that has sufficient information around community interests and preferences to enable the purpose of the policy to be achieved. So given the policy, is over 8 years old, hasn't been reviewed, officers don't recommend that this test can be met, and are recommending that the community is consulted around the changes. So I'd just like to give a little summary in terms of the changes that are proposed. It's written quite differently to the previous policy. Hopefully a little bit more easy to navigate for both staff and for elected members as needed. In terms of strategic assets, I guess this is the main change in the policy as we have in front of us at the moment as a draft. This brings into all the community wellbeing aspects of the LGA. It's worth noting that even though an asset might be listed in the policy as significant as a strategic asset, this doesn't automatically trigger consultation. So it's just one of the factors that's considered through an assessment of issues and whether it's significant or not. So there are a number of additional strategic assets being proposed in the policy as outlined in Schedule 1. And this brings into all the cultural facilities that we have, the more the green infrastructure and the like, because at the moment the current list is very much focused on physical infrastructure and assets. There are a few additional considerations we've brought into significance assessment, and one of them is the alignment with the council strategic framework and significant decisions that have already been made. The impact of levels of service provided by council, and looking at council's ability to actually deliver agreed projects and business as usual projects when we're thinking about this. So it's recommended that the community feedback be considered on the draft policy in alignment with the annual planning process, just for efficiency purposes. But critically, I think it's really important that by the time we start working into the next LTP, that we've got a robust and fit for purpose policy that we can develop our long-term plan going forward with. So the draft policy and guidelines are found in attachments 1 and 2, and I'm happy to take any questions that anyone may have on these documents. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillors, questions? Councillor Holding.
Thank you, Victoria. Quick question. Just on the new ones that will be added to the policy. I was just trying to, what is the determination for waterfront facilities? Is this quite broad? Is there a zone, or is there more identified than certain things? I was just thinking there's a piece of land down there that was probably already being public consulted on. Does that change anything for those sorts of things?
So this is really relating to anything that council operates or owns at the harbour, Yunuru Harbour. So I'm thinking the likes of the
Breakwater and those sorts of things.
yeah, where you fix the boats and that type of thing. The breakwater, any other council land down there that's owned.
Okay. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I've got 3 questions. The first one on page 42 at the bottom, we say, or you advise us that a decision to transfer ownership or control of a strategic asset cannot be made unless it has first been included in the long-term plan. And yet we've already discussed this morning the possibility of having a consultation on the future of tourism Waitaki. Now, I'm just wondering whether that would be ultra vires based on what that paragraph at the bottom of page 42 says. In other words, if we haven't mooted that transfer of ownership or whatever, or control in the long-term plan, can we proceed?
So I don't believe that Tourism Waitaki is actually listed as our strategic assets at the moment, but we're looking at going forward from July 2023 under the proposed policy that would be. So that would apply in that case, but prior to that time, we don't have that listed, so that wouldn't be relevant.
Right. No, thank you. Now, the other, just out of interest, we're talking about additional strategic assets on the next page. What waterfront facilities that we own and operate in the harbour are we proposing to add?
I think that was what Councillor Holding was asking.
But it's not quite clear, and I think it's listed, Oamaru Breakwater is listed independently, but all these other things aren't. I mean, is there a buffer zone? Does it take into the Cape and waterfront? Well, like, where's the line is what I'm wondering.
We can be clear in terms of a map if we need, in terms of exactly what we're referring to, but it's really around the land at the Oamaru Harbour. At the moment, I believe that the breakwater is listed in there, but nothing else is. We have a large amount of land at the harbour. We can specify that. I mean, I think in the harbour strategy, there are some maps in there which we can align to if you feel the need.
Yeah, it would be good to get a breakdown of what those parts are, rather than a general one. Which kind of begs the question is something to walk, but we won't go into that one at the moment. Holmes Wharf will be. Okay, any other questions?
So what I was trying to understand was what would it mean for, I'll use the land on the corner by McEwen's, for example, that has been consulted on with the community and was identified as a possible piece of land to sell for some development. So say that went in now, what sort of holdups would that mean in a long-term plan to deal with that sort of land? Does it hamper, does it make things longer, or as a hypothetical example?
Potentially for a 12-month period, but then if you could actually address it through the next long-term plan and to say, like, yes, but these items, even though they've been identified as strategic, council will be considering their future. There's already a list of properties that relate to under, I think it's the reserves legislation. It's, here's some pieces of land that council may consider disposing of in the future.
Okay, we need to keep this moving. So just try and be quick now. Councillor Blackstone.
Thanks for putting this together, Victoria. I just wanted the additional strategic assets we've got on Oamaru Public Gardens listed there. I'm just wondering if there should be a separate one or that expanded out to the wider green space situation in the context of its ability to perform, its ability to link back to the overall pillars of success for the council, but in respect to ecological function, but also its landscape function with respect to potential for flood attenuation and mitigation and or carbon offsets, and how that links back to other strategic assets that are listed, such as our roading and stormwater.
Someone responding?
There's a few parts to that question, I think, but you're sort of referring to the wider park network potentially, as opposed to the public gardens.
Yes.
I guess that's a question that the councils can consider, an option that councils can consider, bearing in mind that there are having, extra things to think about in terms of decision making, obviously, but if it's in the public interest, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, my last question on page 51, I'm just wondering why we're proposing to, you asked us to consider the following, or that we're going to consider the following. Bullet point 2 is level of community interest. Bullet point 3 is alignment with mana whenua aspirations. Why have we not simply made the two the same? Why haven't we said bullet point 2, alignment with community aspirations, bullet point 3, alignment with mana whenua aspirations? Why the dichotomy, and why what would appear to be a preference for mana whenua aspirations in terms of emphasis over community interest?
So I guess the reason why it's been separated out is that obviously council has an obligation to provide the opportunity for Maori to contribute to the decision-making process. and particularly, and also the interest in the values. We've got the obligation under the Treaty of Waitaki and the Local Government Act. And at the moment, I think in the current policy, we do have that part of that is in the mix. It sort of refers to our decision-making policy for Maori under that in the long-term plan.
Well, if I understand the Supreme Court's ruling, the treaty is a partnership. Now, if indeed there is some provision in the LGA for us to actually become partners with, and how we could have done that when there was no local government in New Zealand in 1840 is a conceptual point beyond my comprehension. But if it is a partnership, then why not a partnership that aligns community aspirations and mana whenua aspirations? Surely that's true partnership. Surely that complies with the treaty, rather than one that says that actually our significance policy has to align with mana whenua aspirations, but we simply note the level of community interest. There does seem to be a preferential dichotomy.
The government signed the treaty and then the government created local government and transferred its obligations there. So that's the reason why local government is there. I mean, for a long time, I think a lot of us thought the partnership is only with the central government, but the reality is that no, it's with us as well. So that's a better understanding of that, hopefully. I mean, what this is, it's all those comments that you've made, those aspects that you've raised, council will consider, it precedes those, and so is looking at the, you know, whatever we're doing, does it align with aspirations or not of mana whenua. So it's a bit of a grey area because there's still that discussion's still progressing, and I don't know that staff can give a full answer on that today because it's like I say, it's a developing situation. But Mr. Hope's going to give it a go.
Yeah, I think you're really considering two different matters here. One is it's a level of interest. So, that's council's understanding of, how essentially how contentious or non-contentious a topic is. The second one is, I think you're far more likely to have a published or stated position from mana whenua that you need to consider, whereas you're going to have a whole variety and diverse opinions across the wider community. So I think you really are talking about two quite different matters and trying to put them together. Well, I mean, one is assessment of level of interest and level of controversy. The other is about aligning it with essentially another organisation's policy or stated position.
Today, we're not deciding on this. We're deciding on what we're going to go out to get community feedback. And in accordance with that, I'm asking if there's someone that's willing to move the recommendation. Councillor Holding and Councillor Hopkins. It may cause a talking point, some of the things you've raised, and that's why we go out for feedback. So given that we've got very limited time left for the rest of the agenda, it'd be good to get this one done, but do we have any other comments on it? Those in favour then, please say aye. Aye. And against? That's carried, thank you. And now moving to item 6.3 on page 64, and welcome Grant Rhodes to the chamber. Thank you very much, Victoria, for your contribution there. So talking about the car park beside the Oamaru Blue Penguin Colony and just giving an update on that one, and just ready for you to get into that one when you are ready, Mr. Rhodes. Yep, all go.
Okay, thank you very much. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Grant Rhodes, co-property manager at Council's property team. So the Penguin Colony car park project involves the upgrading of the existing 2,500 square metre poorly formed metalled car park bordering the Oamaru Blue Penguin Colony's western boundary, which is leased by the Penguin Colony. It does not include upgrading the small sealed car park directly north of the main Penguin Colony building. This project was identified in the Oamaru Harbour Plan 2020 and beyond with an importance level A, which means it best meets the investment objectives prioritised. The purpose of the project is to create a robust and safe long-term asset with low maintenance costs that meets the vehicle parking needs of the Penguin Colony, as well as other Southern Harbour users. The sealing and marking of the car park will increase the parking capacity and will also mitigate current issues with congestion and overflow. An increased amenity will be provided through the sealing of the surface, line marking, landscaping, and fencing. There will be enhanced lighting, will better meet the expectations of locals and visitors and improve the safety of the car park at night. Functional drainage will further enhance amenity, improve environmental outcomes, and better protect council's infrastructure and improvements in the area. The project budget is sitting at $450,000. Council previously approved funding of $190,000 in the long-term plan several years ago. Tourism infrastructure funding of $110,000 has been approved by MB, subject to project completion by 31 October 2023. Cost escalation over the past few years has significantly increased civil construction prices, which has caused a funding shortfall of $150,000 for this project. Officers recommend use of the Harbour Endowment Reserve rather than additional loan funding for this project to minimise impact on ratepayers. The current balance of the Harbour Endowment Reserve is sitting at 1.25 million. Just wanted to note there is potential to partner with the likes of our secondary schools to provide some minor cost savings for the landscaping and fencing elements of this project. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Grant. This doesn't, as you noted, this doesn't include the small car park between Del Mar Restaurant and the Penguin Colony building. Does it make sense to add that into the work being done? And is the depreciation funding that could fix that? Because it's an ongoing issue with potholing and so forth there, and it'd be great to actually have everything tidied up in that end.
Yes, 100%. That's the expectation of going up open tender procurement. We'll use those measure and value rates to also apply to the smaller car park. Yes, we do have satisfactory depreciation reserves to get that done.
Yeah.
So it will be a huge improvement and do that at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's good. Any other questions, Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, look, just a couple. I see we're asking for 110,000, but
We've been given 110 from MB.
yes, I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, but hang on, I'm just trying to get a handle on this.
So basically, we'd allowed 300,000, including up that 110. So essentially asking for another 150 with it coming from the Harbour Endowment Fund.
Well, yes, sorry, I muddled the numbers up the wrong way around indeed. But I'm looking at the summary at the bottom that says that we had voted in September 2022 to accelerate the work and bring forward 190,000. Then the ministry, and this is where I confused the figures, then the ministry kicked in 110,000. So, you know, the obvious maths here is there's an 80,000 deficit rather than 150. So I suppose that's question number one. And I'm sure there's a simple answer to that. The other question, are we satisfied with the design of the car park? By my calculation, we're only providing for 34 extra cars. And I've counted the drawing we've shown and the thing here. If you take away the bus parking and the camper vans, there's 34 extra car parks, and that doesn't seem to me to be enough to justify the expense.
Thank you for those questions. So the $190,000 was originally in the Oamaru Harbour Plan, 2020 and beyond. It probably wasn't a detailed price. They didn't have engineering, didn't have a whole lot of work done. So it was probably a very rough indicative idea back even pre-2020. I think subsequent to that time, then there was application made to MB. So they got the TIF funding. They realised it was going to cost a lot more than $190,000. So on that basis, they got the MB funding to contribute. And it's really only the last 6 to 9 months of really fine-tuning the engineering and got some accurate costings. The next answer of your questions, so in total, it would create 48 parks all up. My math on that plan was 35 parks, but there was an extra 2 parks they can incorporate in the southwestern corner. So that should push up cars to 37, 9 quite large camper van parks with the larger camper vans we're getting around now, and also the 2 bus parks. There was a couple of 3 or 4 different versions of different plans with squared on 90-degree parking, which I think could have been quite problematic from a functional point of view. That was going to potentially provide up to about another 5 car parks. But I think the ease of access in and out of these parks will be a lot far superior. Yeah, so it would have been nice to get more. The only way we can potentially get more is going further south. And there was an agreement in the Oamaru Harbour Plan, I think, with Penguin Colony indicating they were going to have some additional penguin nesting areas at the back of the car park. And the other thing is we've got a big cliff face there too, so potential hazard from, rock falls, and we've got big bunds that we've got to maintain in place. So we've certainly tried to maximise the car parking.
Thank you, Councillor Holding.
Thanks, Grant. Can I just say my question is just around the lighting. Are we going to keep it in theme with any of the heritage lighting that we've got down there and low wattage bulbs for the ecological values?
So again, further consideration was given with the style of street lighting, and we opted for a more basic type of spun light pole rather than a highly decorative, expensive pole. So the basic poles are $1,000, the expensive poles are $4,000 to $5,000 each. So in the aim of trying to keep the cost down, this pricing does include more simple street lighting. We didn't think it was in the public face as much sitting back there rather than on the harbour frontage. Would certainly expect that, and potentially the likes of Holmes Wharf maybe going forward. We certainly have allowed 2,200 Kelvin lights, so it's more user friendly. A lot of Otago townships have been using them in Karatani, Waitaki, a whole lot of other areas, and they've been very successful. So they're more user friendly for the wildlife. So we certainly will be using, the lower output lights.
Thanks very much, Grant. I'm going to move the recommendations 1 through 3. Someone like to second those? Councillor Percival. Thank you. No. Anyway, well, okay, I'll withdraw that for the moment, so you can ask your question. You put your microphone on.
Yeah, Grant, by the time you take in design plan and staff time, you're talking over $500,000 to create a car park. Now, I realise there's a lot of effort to go into that. I'm not really comfortable with this. I think it's a huge amount of money. And I don't know where the business plan, what the thing is, where you can justify $500,000 for a car park. I'm sorry. So I think for me to be comfortable with this, I'd need a little bit more information where that money's going, how it's being spent, under what direction. Is it the ceiling of it? Is it the drainage? What is it? What costs $500,000?
Have you looked at the report? Because there's a lot of stuff around the drainage and exactly the formation of it, the whole cross sections of the car park. It's fairly detailed, probably more detailed than most reports we get of this nature. So it's there, and we all know that we've got a lot of construction inflation happening at the moment, and this is. It's not a business plan, but there is a master plan for the harbour. This is part of that, but it's based on the strategy that we've got for the harbour. It tidies up an area and formalises car parking. It makes that easier for the people along there. And if we're tying in the small car park up and fixing that at the same time, it's going to just take care of a whole lot of issues that currently exist in that end of the harbour. Generally, all of the planning work and so on that goes on is part of the overall budget. So is that not part of the 450,000, Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah, so certainly wasn't expecting 500,000 plus. The top figure was 450. So we have had some pretty robust calculations around that. It does include a contingency item of 30,000. I'm hopeful by some partnering with some schools with a community activity like this, we may be able to save potentially another 20,000. So possibly we could come in at 400. We can't guarantee that. We have got some unknowns under the ground. For example, rocks, railway lines, what's it going to look like in a contingency? So we need to allow some contingencies for that work. But no, there is a lot to it, coupled with your street lighting, your drainage. We've had to get discharge permits out to Sandy Bay Beach, dealing with contaminants, that kind of thing, to be proactive, dealing in a sensitive environmental area with our penguins and so forth. So yeah, there's a bit more that meets the eye with the costings. Yeah, there's certainly not a whole lot all on project management and consultants. There's a lot of in the ground activity that this work goes towards. Yeah.
So I'm just pleased to note we've immediately saved 10% on your estimate, Councillor Percival, potentially 20% saving if things go well, with the contingency and so on that's been built in there. So hopefully you'll find that more in agreement with your cost expectations. I'm again going to move the recommendations. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Holding. Thank you. Any comments?
I think it's going to be a nice project to be seen completed. There's definitely been a lot of intention from the community to see this project done. It's a high area for visitors and harbour users alike. So yeah, I can see it's going to be a nice addition to the harbour area.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? It's carried. So despite the 10% saving. Right. Thank you very much, councillors. We've got people waiting for us at morning tea. They've been waiting over 10 minutes now, so we can go and meet with them, and then we'll be back at 10:25. So just around about 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to this live stream meeting. So we've got on to item 6.4, which is the Sport Waitaki annual report. And just welcome to the chamber, Lindsay Hyde, who oversees, well, is that the right word? Who keeps an eye on what's happening with Sport Waitaki. And welcome Pip, who is our local coordinator for Sport Waitaki, and James Nation, who's recently appointed CEO of Sport Otago. So welcome. We've got to catch up with you last night at the Sports Awards, which were once again an excellent event, and just celebrating some wonderful achievement in Waitaki sport. So thank you for all your organisation of that, Pip, and the coordination along with the Sports Bodies group. So yeah, well done. So anyway, Lindsay, do you want to say some words and then hand over to James and Pip?
Right, I trust that everyone's read the report. Sport Waitaki do receive a grant from the council, so every year they're required to provide this annual report. So yeah, I'm not going to say too much more. I'll leave it over to these guys to do their presentation and give you all guys and ladies, or gents and ladies, an opportunity to ask some questions. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Right, floor is yours.
Kia ora, welcome to the new councillors. So yes, obviously each year you guys do provide us a grant, and we are very honoured and privileged to receive it, and are very thankful. 2021, 2022 was another big year for Sport Waitaki. Again, I've been in the role for another year, and so obviously building on the year before that. So again, Sport Waitaki obviously is part of Sport Otago. Do I push the next slide? Oh, yeah, cool. Cool. So obviously a few highlights that we did have throughout the year was we gained 2 more cars driving around the district, which was cool, with Ellen and Andrea, so our health coach and our healthy active learning, which was great. Another big one was our database, which is known as the Waitaki app, and leading that. So that's striving and growing every day. Our Play Wharira is getting more and more well known, and so people can use it throughout the community for various events. It has been at Relay for Life, it's been at the Family Fun Day, and various events like that. Another one is our Senko unit, and having our Have a Go day for our girls. So we're definitely still continuing this. It is becoming more of a regular thing, and definitely something that I'm personally proud of. So this is actually speaking about our last year's sports awards. And yeah, we had 191 that year. It was at the rec centre. And we had Hayden Patton as our speaker. Corny Duncan picking out our top spot. And we had 2 inductees into our Hall of Fame. So that is the second year that we've had that after our 11-year hiatus. And yeah, the passing of Owen with a nice presentation for him. So yes, we have just recently had our awards last night. So you'll hear about those again. Yeah, so when I first came, we did a research project called Te Ora Tinana, and we worked with our Pacifica group, our Māori and our disability group. Again, from this research, we are still continuing. So obviously it came from that was our Senko unit, and that happens each term with all our primary schools. These Senko units come and have a go of 4 sports. So that's regular. As well as our junior volleyball. Again, that's still continuing, and actually our numbers have increased even more. The next step for that is making it sustainable for our community. And then continuing on, and also cool working with the council is in and around play, and working on how we can kind of get that going a bit more throughout Waitaki, and thinking outside the square. And how we can use it in particular. One we're focusing on is the North End. Obviously with pros, there is definitely some challenges, and lots of that does come down to we are isolated, we don't have an airport, you know, we are a small community, so trying to, you know, communicate between the sports when they are travelling to various places, that's improving, but definitely still a big challenge. Everything requires funding of some sort, and so getting the information out in and around that. Something where I am focusing on this year is our funding in different languages, trying to help all our areas within our community. And again, our youth engagement. Everyone is too busy, the phrase too busy keeps coming up, but definitely trying to push for that, as they are the future of our organisation. And volunteer fatigue. Yeah, also again, another big one, but working with volunteers, working on our youth to prepare them so they don't burn out. Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously our future, and lots of this is happening. We've just had Rad Skate School at our family fun day on Saturday, and that was a huge hit. So that will continue. The things that are continuing to go, obviously our Waitaki app, our Te Manua applications, a donation drive, working with the council in and around some frisbee golf and some basketball courts, some club governance changes, so supporting our clubs for this, as well as one that's new on the scenes that I'm actually working with our coordinator in Central on, is the Early Childhood and Elderly Project. So, hey, cool things for the future. Any questions? This is your time.
Thank you. James, do you want to say anything? If Pip lets you.
No, I tried to be quick, sorry.
Yeah, look, I was a bit of a whirlwind trip through. I think Pip's really important for Sport Waitaki and for Sport Otago for us to have that local presence. So thank you very much for your ongoing support. And look, I'm really privileged to be here, and just really keen to be a part of the community and get up here as much as I can, because it's not Dunedin, it's not Central Otago, it's you guys. So we're about getting out there and getting kids, well, actually all of Dunedin and Oamaru Central active. So it's about wherever we can trying to make a difference, but certainly focusing in on Māori Pacifica, disability sector, and women in sport. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor Ryan.
Thanks, Pat, for putting that together. I just really want to say there's a really impressive list of programs that you've been involved in that past year, and partnerships as well. It's great to see all of the different organisations that you're working with, and having been involved in a couple of the different sport Waitaki events myself. Yeah, it's just they're great for the community, and Pip is a real asset to our community. She really goes above and beyond. But I was just wondering, I guess, we've got another report coming up about the impact of COVID on participation and events and that sort of thing. Well, I guess, what have you seen since June, or where are things heading, and what are you sort of noticing at the moment?
I think people are starting to get back into the swing of things. It definitely is taking some time, and I guess getting used to the new normal. However, I think the biggest impact it's had is actually on the kind of the running of events. So, you know, people are putting in place a few different things, and a prime example is last night. You know, COVID is still around, it's still a thing, and we just have to be prepared and flexible. So I think people are slightly scared in terms of that, but yeah, in the sports and things that I've worked with, it's just putting a plan in place so that it can happen. But participation is still there. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, thanks. A much simpler question, and just out of curiosity, you talk about your new trailer, Lucy the Loose Parts. I haven't seen Lucy the Loose Parts. I'm just wondering why Lucy the Loose Parts is called Lucy the Loose Parts. Moving on.
Always the important questions.
Well, exactly. As I said, it was slightly less serious than Councillor Ryan's very pertinent question vis-a-vis COVID. Two other questions very quickly. The number of people who've enrolled in your junior golf program, which seems to me quite interesting. And can you just explain you talk about the Healthy Lifestyles program. The way I read it, you say here, we have also made several trips to Oamaru and Palmerston with our placement students to work face to face. So is this Healthy Lifestyles team not based here? Is it something that's coming out of Dunedin? So those are my three questions.
Okay, yeah. First one, it is a loose parts play trailer, so there's just literally loose parts in it. So why not call it Lucy? We also have another trailer. To go in and around all of Otago. So currently we have Takaro here. Yeah, she was at the AMP show. So yeah, that was quite cool. The next question was, yes, our golf numbers have increased a lot. And we've been working with all our golf clubs in order to make that great vetting and some great work from our golf clubs to make it more accessible and for everyone. So it doesn't matter, there's, you know, less fees, there is from donations of golf equipment that they can have equipment as well. So all of those barriers are being removed, hence why there's a great increase in our junior golf. And then our next question is Healthy Lifestyles. It is a team based in Dunedin, and we have one in particular called our Active Families. So Zoe now does come to face, which is really key, and she has a lot of referrals from the Waitaki, and in particular Oamaru. So she is actually coming once a week now, and fingers crossed. And what I'm hoping for is someone to be up here permanently. But yeah, still got some more work to do behind the scenes there. But yeah, Healthy Lifestyles is a separate team on the side that's based in Dunedin.
Thank you. Councillor Blackler.
Thanks for the presentation and for the work that you guys are doing in the community. I just noted on the presentation an upcoming project around kids and the elderly, and I was interested to hear what's in store there. It sounds pretty cool. And then secondly, there was a note there about volunteer fatigue. I just wondered if you could talk to that and whether that's something unique to the district or whether it's something shared, you know, in the wider Otago district and further afield.
Yeah, our elderly preschool project, there was actually a Netflix series on a project that happened in Australia. And I guess if you look at our Waitaki community, we do have quite a lot of elderly. And in particular, I do work with age concern, and we feel that potentially this is something we could use to our benefit. So it will be using, the extremes of age in order to kind of bring out each other's playful side of things. So you'll hear more about that in our next report. But also volunteer fatigue, no, it's a nationwide thing. Even when I was up north, it's the same. I guess people that do volunteer, people often say, you see the same people at, every event, or you see the same thing here, same people doing the certain things of driving kids and things like that. Sometimes it is a personality thing. But I think the biggest thing is just a little bit of education in and around how we can delegate those small things. So even though, rather than taking on all of it and fatiguing because of it, it is more importantly that, if it is just delegating those small things. So lots of people don't want to be labelled on a committee. However, they're more than happy to wash the kids, football uniforms one week, or they're more than happy to take on smaller projects. So that's where I come in to support that, just to kind of keep our volunteers going longer, rather than taking on everything and, it only lasting a few years, which is detrimental to sports. Yeah.
Thank you very much for those. We are 5 minutes over, so I'm going to call it there. So can someone move we receive the annual report, please? Councillor Thompson, and second, Councillor Linwood. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you again for all that you do in our community, Pip, and James. All the best for your tenure as CEO. Sport Otago. It's an important organisation, and it delivers so much right across the Otago region. And so, we are pleased to be part of it, and want to make sure that we carry it on, and that we have great participation in all our sporting and activities and so on from across the community. So thank you very much for coming in today and presenting your report. Thank you. Councillors, we're now on to the next item, which is 6.5, the Waitaki community. No, yes, 6.5. We got. Cheers. Okay, so Waitaki Community Recreation Centre annual report, and welcome Di Talanoa, manager of the Rec Centre here. So good morning, Di. Good to have you here. And just acknowledge also Councillor Ryan as our representative on the Rec Centre Trust. So feel free to contribute anything along the way, Rebecca, if you wish to. Anyway, Di, I'll hand over to you. So I think you know how to work the microphone, do you? Just push the button on the right-hand side when you're ready to go. The silver. So.
Thank you. Morena. Tēnā koutou katoa ko Diane Talanoa, takuinga. You honour the Mayor and the CEO and everybody else. Thank you for the opportunity. Got 10 minutes, so I've got a report there that was an annual report pertaining to last year. So that was to the 30th of June 2022. So it's fairly short and succinct. Happy to answer any questions and maybe take a moment at the end just to talk about looking forward would be really helpful. So with regards to the report, just like to iterate that we continue to meet our obligations in providing healthy recreational, sporting, cultural, social and educational activities for the benefit of Waitaki. So that's what our aim is, and we do our best to do that. Looking at some of the detail around that 12-month period, of course, as for everybody, impacts of COVID were ongoing. So we could see that in comparison, higher hours were still higher. Hours at the facility were still lower than they had been previously. and at regular hours, like there are over 300 hours of activities that we would normally have had were cancelled, etc. So those sorts of trends, I suspect, are the same for everybody, really. I think one of the key things is that we do tend to create opportunities for people right across the demographics. So we've got from young to old and people right throughout the Waitaki region and all sorts of different groups using the facility. And that continues, which is great. We aim to get event hire going on, and in that period we had the sports awards, an annual basketball tournament, clued up expos, and table tennis small ball tournaments. So those are all really good ones to be having at the centre. Our long-term regular users include the Whitestone Taekwondo, North Otago Basketball, which is one of our main users, particularly in the winter months. The Tai Chi are regular users. The Alpine Club, we have a strong partnership with them. They own the walls that are the climbing walls, and approximately 2 years ago, built a bouldering wall as well. So they own those walls in the facility, and so they operate out of there with club nights twice a week, and also have it can be hired out for use for schools and private groups, etc. So they're a strong partner. We had, in that 12-month period, we had a massage therapist operating out of the facility. We have the Filipino Waitaki Inc. community strong users. They run their competition there. Highly entertaining if anyone ever wants some entertainment. Their basketball's great fun and serious as well, but yeah. Indoor football regularly run a league out of there on Monday nights, and futsal and first kicks, so the junior football operate out of there as well. We had a partnership through Sport Waitaki with the Tumanua Fund and the Rangatahi Volleyball, which so we work quite closely with Pip from Sport Waitaki. You would have seen the rec centre to some of your slides, I suspect. So that's quite a wide group of users. We provide some programs ourselves. One of our strong programs is our Active Kids Holiday program. So that's, we have 40 kids there for the mornings for 1 week every school holidays, and we have some high school or that age student who come along, so that creates leadership opportunities for them as well. Plus clubs come in and run their sports for the kids, so that gives them exposure. So we often have parents saying, oh, my child really enjoyed doing such and such, how do I join that club or whatever. So it's got a multiple purpose really, and we love having 40 kids every morning. That's great, coming up soon. There's lot more detail about the activities and the users further on in the report. We did do some targeted maintenance. We just improved the safety around the building, and we moved, took some of the trees out, which didn't really like taking trees out, but it is much better for the area. And we put a garden with grasses and stuff in there, which looks really great and is safer in terms of security and also better for maintenance, etc. And I'd done a few years of gathering lots of funding, and we had a major project to redo the court floors. They probably hadn't been done for 30 years, so they all got sanded back and repolyurethaned and line marking, etc. So that gives them a good, 10-year future proofing really, which is great. Just quickly through going there, we're also involved in community activities, so we're one of the key people helping run the annual colour run, and we also work closely with the sports awards and the Hall of Fame, which are based, the Hall of Fame is based at the recreation centre at the moment. We're lucky, we work hard to get funding. So in that 12-month period, we got funding from JW Christie Trust, Waitaki District Community Work Grants, Colin Jones Trust, Honourable Nellie Malcolm Trust, Lion Foundation, Otago Community Trust, and Network Waitaki, as well as a generous annual grant from the Waitaki District Council. Our financial result at the end of to June 2022 was a small deficit of 1226. We do have funds in the bank. Under the objectives, there's objectives around meeting the community's indoor sports needs. So I've just quickly talked about some of those. Some of the others, like in the winter period, we are probably oversubscribed. Everybody wants to have their, so basketball runs 3 nights a week, and everybody wants to have their sports practice and stuff there, particularly when the weather's a bit inclement. So we have a demand for hire of the courts and stuff throughout the winter periods. The other activities I've mostly talked about in that section, it also gives a list of like all of the different schools, all of the different clubs, etc., of different groups who use the centre. So it's quite broad, as you'll see. There's a little section there on the cancellations, which again pertain to that issue around COVID that I've already mentioned. And I think one of the key things is that, you know, it's about strong social connections and mental health as well as physical benefits. We know all that's important. So we strive to create the opportunities for those things to happen. We run some programs ourselves. We partner with Sport Waitaki for quite a few things. We've got the Active Kids Holiday program, which is really popular. We run some fitness things, which is a separate section of what we do. We run a basketball league, etc. So there's a few activities like that. Those are probably the key things that I wanted to maybe highlight, and happy to talk about anything that's in that report if anybody's got any questions. And then I'd just like to perhaps have an opportunity to look at what we're doing in the future, given that this is 9 months ago. We're now looking at the external cladding of the building and just getting some analysis of that, and looking at getting some quotes and some funding towards trying to either cover it or replace it, looking at future-proofing the building. And so that's a fairly key project for us. It's quite a significant project. So,
Okay,
yes.
thanks very much, Di. And we will go to questions, and just with a request to councillors, keep your questions as brief as possible. We're a bit behind time, and so succinct is good. Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, I will be brief, but look, please, I want to preface this. The questions may sound negative, they're not intended to be, but I look at the report and I'm troubled by some of the numbers. For instance, if I read your page 95 correctly, you've only got 576 people using the facility at the moment, casuals 426, members 150. That's down from the previous year. And if I look at the income, I'll just go through. Oh, by the way, I've just asked Jeremy this. There's a reference on page 101 to ANZ having a registered first mortgage over the property, and he doesn't know anything about it. So I'd be curious if you could amplify that or explain that. But the other thing is, if I look at the income strands, our $82,000 grant, in addition, plus another 20,000 and 45,000 in COVID resurgence and wage subsidies, they're the biggest sources of income. I mean, you've only got 19,000 from aerobics, 20,000 from weights. The numbers involved and the income stream suggest a venue that is not being used as much as it was. Is that a fair conclusion to draw?
It was definitely not the definition of succinct, but Guy, if you could respond to that.
Just to go to the mortgage one, I asked about that a couple of years ago, and I saw it in the report. Apparently, it's just a thing that we don't have a mortgage with the AZ. I mean, it's just a thing that goes in that report. Somebody who's an accountant might know more about that than I do. I have asked about it in the past, and it's it has to be in here. I don't know. Yeah. In terms of the numbers, in terms of the weights room and the fitness side of it is user pay, so that has to cover its own costs. So and so that's money in, money out. The key thing that we're doing is trying to create all of those opportunities where we can create some programs and the hire of the facility. And so the hire of the facility, yes, is lower, and there were a whole lot of cancellations, so which I'd alluded to in my report. So yes, that has a significant impact on us, yes. And so trying to grow that back again is important. But I think that's probably one of the key things is that the usage of the facility, like everywhere, I do believe, decreased during that period. And so people were reluctant, even when we weren't in lockdown and those sorts of things, which did occur during that 12-month period, people were still reluctant to come back and gather together, as we all know. Yeah. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
Yes, it does.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Di. We unfortunately do need to keep this moving. So, yeah, it's been challenging, and as you pointed out, there's been a number of cancellations, and we know this events get called off or have been getting called off over the last couple of years through COVID challenges, and appreciate the fact that you've actually managed to keep going, and overall your financial result is almost pretty much break even, and you've done a lot of maintenance during the year as well. So that's, I think, to be commended. It's an important facility, and it's important to our community. It creates opportunities and so on that people would otherwise not have. So thank you for the work that you and your team do there, and to the board, the work that they do overseeing the activity. So it is appreciated. So thank you very much for coming in.
Could I make one question really is just around looking at the future with things changing, with the new event centre in the pipeline, and our trust is obviously looking at what that means for us going forward in the future. And at the moment, as it's been in the report and as it's been mentioned, the Waitaki District Council do give us a generous grant each year. And so we're wanting to get some certainty around what might be happening in the future and what's going to happen, and what sort of timeframe we're looking at. Our trust needs to work around that, as do the obviously we've got the partnership with the school as well. So so it'll be I obviously don't need to have that answer right now, but it is something obviously that's where we need to be looking at next, and looking at what that means in terms of the council's perspective on it, in terms of our trust and what that means for our users, etc. as well.
No, that we realise that, and obviously I've met with some of the trustees and yourself 2 or 3 times and talked about some of those issues. It is a decision ultimately for council to make, but what I do say to you is when the new event centre happens, it will still run alongside, I'm sure, the rec centre, because it's not going to replace everything that you do. It's a matter of finding the niche for each and make sure that they focus on that. But what I do say to you is just encourage you to, we're about to go out for consultation on the annual plan, so just reiterate the importance of the facility and the funding that we put into it, as far as giving access to the community to a great wee facility there. And we will continue to keep in communication. It's one of the reasons why Councillor Ryan is on both your trust, your board, and also on the event centre committee, so that there is a good flow of communication through there. So feel free to make use of that, but also anytime you want me to come along to meetings, I'm more than happy to come along. But thank you very much.
Right. Thank you.
Councillors, would someone like to move we receive the report? Councillor Holding, thank you very much. Councillor Blackler, second that. All in favour say aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, councillors, item 6.6 next, the Waitaki Resource Recovery Trust, and we've got a couple of representatives there. So Trish Hurley, the manager, and Trustee Linda Wilson. So welcome to you both. We've also got Steve Clark, our solid waste and recycling and whatever else falls under his portfolio manager or organizer. So welcome, Steve, and let you say a couple of words if you want to start off with things, and then hand over to the representatives of the trust.
Thank you, Mayor Kuchar. Firstly, succinct is my middle name, and much to Trish's relief, this will be short and sharp. Yes, I'd like to introduce Trish Hurley, the manager at WIRT, and Linda Wilson, who's a board member of the Waitaki Resource Recovery Trust. I've got it right now. I've got it WIRT and WIRT. Anyway, I'd just like to, for the benefit of the new councillors and as a reminder for the re-elected members, just give a quick summary of, some context around what these guys do, because it's absolutely awesome. Most councils have a curbside rates funded recycling collection service, and the Waitaki Council chooses to support the trust to operate their resource recovery park. And by way of comparison, when I was in Clutha, we similar district size, similar ratepayer base. We had a curbside collection service down there that we were quite proud to report that we collected around about 600 tonne per annum, and the cost to the ratepayer was around about $500,000. CODC, similar size, similar numbers. They do around about 800 tonne in a year. These guys, 2,500 tonne for $320,000. So you have to agree, it's a pretty slick operation and a very valuable operation for the district. And I won't even talk about the social benefits that this organisation produces, particularly around the human recycling that they do through there, the challenges that they face around working with perhaps what you would call the unemployable and spitting them out the other end as employable people. They run a literacy program in there. It's just amazing what these guys do. And they don't sing from the treetops. They're humble folk. And so I feel obliged to do that on their behalf. So I'll hand over to Trish now to talk about the report.
Thank you, Steve. It was very good of you to say those kind things about us. Good morning, everybody. First of all, we'd like to thank Council for their ongoing support and the support we've had from them for nearly the last 20 years. In January next year, we would have actually been operating for 20 years at our current site. So thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. Although we don't have a curbside collection here in Oamaru, the quality of our product that we send out is highly sought after because we do hand sort. So where other towns have the problem with contamination, we don't have it as much because people are more proud to bring their items directly to the park. During the last financial year, we had just under 50,000 cars through the year. That is slightly down to the previous year, but we also were interrupted due to COVID that year as well. So if we counted the numbers that come to the park in total, we would be looking around the 80,000 cars per year. So that 50,000 is just through the recycling and through the green waste and rubbish. So that's very good. Has everybody got questions regarding the report that we submitted?
Okay, before we go to councillors, Linda, do you want to add anything?
The short answer.
Yes, just I'd like to endorse Trish and her thanking for the support over those past 20 years, because I've been involved since that time and watched it grow and watched Trish grow in handling what she handles in such a fragmented business. So yes, but she knows more than me. So I'll let her carry on.
Thanks very much. You can leave the microphone on, of course. Councillor Thompson, question.
Thank you very much for the report. Just a question around your ag recovery program. I see there's nothing in this last financial year. I am aware that we're going to partner with the Southland Disability Trust with plastic wrap, which I think is very exciting, and is also an income stream for us because they're going to pass the fee on. So my question is around the challenge of how we can recruit the whole of the district rather than just Oamaru, in terms of getting that horrible plastic wrap, of which I've got a shed full, where we dispose of it.
Yeah, so previously we actually were contracted through Ag Recovery, and they would actually bring silage wrap from outside of the district to us. So once that program disbanded and new programs developed, we were still accepting silage wrap, but in order for us to previously send consignments where we were sending silage wrap overseas, we needed 81 bales, which equated to about 32 tonne. So as you can imagine, it takes quite a while to get that amount of product. But now that we were partnering with Recycling South and Invercargill, they are actually going to work with the federated farmers, get it out and do the marketing side of things for us in order for us to accept it. But we still have been accepting it. But now we can actually say that 100% of everything that is brought to our site for recycling is recycled in New Zealand. We don't send anything out of district or overseas.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you again for the report and what you're doing. A couple of questions. On page 4 of your report, so page 5, you quote revenue from providing goods and services of $613,015, and yet on page 2 pages on, the figure quoted for the same revenue is, or the figure quoted revenue is $737,954. I'm just curious if you're going to explain the discrepancy. Also on that page, expenses have jumped from 24,903 to 159,158, which is 125,000 more. So if you could explain to me what that's about, I'd be grateful. One other question, if I may, if I look at page 10, at the moment, the shop is earning you the most income, 145,000. Cardboard's next, and the third, and then refuse charge, recycling charge is number 4 at 81,000. All the other recyclables are actually giving you pretty small amounts of money. So a question is that recycling market still in decline in terms of income? And what are you doing to enhance the income from the shop, which is obviously your best earner now?
Yeah, so in answer to the last part of the question, we've developed the garden corner as well. So we're recycling the plants, but commodity prices are still very unstable with the current market. And that's due to COVID still, because overseas places were still in lockdown and they weren't accepting any product into China even for the paper mills and the cardboard. So at the moment, the cardboard price has actually diminished. It's gone down, but it is going to start back up now that the mills in China are now going to open up and accept product again. So there will be a bit of a price war in regards to the natural fibre products. So we're very hopeful that that's going to increase. Some of the plastics have remained stable, but due to people not wanting to recycle as much during that COVID period, did mean that we didn't quite have as much product. And with the additional freight costs and things like that, we've needed to make sure that we've got more product on our site and then send it away in a one consignment rather than in small staggering consignments that we have previously done. So that's a little bit of the difference in the income as well. And there may be a typo on my report, but I haven't got my glasses with me, I'm sorry, but I can send an email and reply to that other question.
If it was a question about the expenses, wasn't it? Yeah, so there's a very itemised note 2. If you look at that, it gives a very, very good breakdown of a lot of the expenses, and you can see where the changes have been. Any other questions? Okay. Someone like to move them? We received the report. Councillor Thompson, thank you, and Councillor Linwood. Okay, any further discussion? I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against, that's carried. Thank you very much for coming in again, Linda and Trish. And Linda, well done on your garden corner project, because I know that is very popular and is assisting the revenues very well. And yeah, it's not done without a lot of work, I know. So well done to you and Trish for the overall management of the facility. Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't think that analysis of expenses does that.
That's good. Okay. So I'd like to move that we go into public excluded, please. And Councillor Cowles, thank you very much, and Councillor McCone, thank you. Those in favour, please say aye. And against, that's carried. So we'll just have a brief break while we close off the live stream. But thank you very much to everyone who has joined us up to now.